In this editorial, we will discuss the relations of India and China, ending the impasse. Impasse means deadlock, a situation when you cannot move further, a situation in which you get entangled. So, India and China are in a situation where they cannot move forward. They are, you can say that, they are stuck. India China cannot put the distrust of the past behind. To put the past behind means if you have done something bad during your past, now you want to leave it. It is called to put behind your past without resolving the border issue. So editorial says that border issue between India and China is the main issue, and without solving this issue, India and China cannot trust each other. They cannot put their distrust behind them. India's relations with China have been in a deep freeze for over a year. During last year, we saw that India and China, both countries remain in conflict state, and you can say that their relations remain in a bad condition. The crisis problem on the LAC, line of actual control. It is the line between India and China, border line. The crisis on the LAC remains unresolved. Unresolved means unsolved, and tens of thousands of soldiers from both sides still remain deployed. When you deploy someone, you use that person. Like if you have deployed soldiers at border, it means you have utilized your soldiers at border in forward areas. So editorial says that still many soldiers from both sides are present at LAC. Against this backdrop, considering this situation, Wednesday's meeting between External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and his Chinese counterpart means equal in rank. So what happened? A meeting happened on Wednesday between External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar and Chinese counterpart Wang Yi. And where did this meeting happen? In Dushanbe. Assumes significance. Assumes means to accept something. So editorial says that with this meeting we can assume that there may be some impacts of this meeting. Their last meeting in Moscow in September 2020. Both leaders met in September 2020. Before this recent meeting, their last meeting happened in September 2020 in Moscow. So after Moscow, this is their second meeting in Dushanbe. Took place means to happen. In the aftermath means the result. Aftermath of the Galwan Valley clash means fight, and at a time of a tinderbox like situation. What is tinderbox like situation? We say a situation is tinderbox like when it is a dangerous situation. It is out of control situation where violence may happen at any time. It is called tinderbox like situation south of Pangong Lake. So editorial said that after the Galwan Valley fight, so it was the result of Galwan Valley fight that both leaders met in Moscow in September 2020. With troops and artillery dangerously close to each other on the heights of Kailash range. So editorial says, again read this sentence. Their last meeting in Moscow in September 2020 took place in the aftermath of the Galwan Valley clash, and at a time of a tinderbox like situation south of Pangong Lake, with troops and artillery dangerously close to each other on the heights of the Kailash range. So you can say that at Kailash range, what did we see? We see the troops. Troops means you can say that a part of your army. Artillery heavy caliber gun is called artillery. So at Kailash Range, we saw the troops and artillery from both sides were present. A political agreement then paved. Then what happened during September 2020? There happened a political agreement, है ना? and which and that agreement made it possible for both sides. Pave the way means to make something possible. To disengage. When you disengage, means you take your army back. In February, so in February, both the countries decided to take back their army. But the agreements in Galwan and Pangong Lake, where both sides have put in place no patrolling. So after the agreement, both countries decided that we will not place our army in Galwan and Pangong Lake, where both sides have put in place no patrolling zone, है ना, no patrolling zones, है ना. So they have decided that there will be no army in these areas. Have not been followed at other disputed sites. So both countries followed their no patrolling zone rule in Galwan and Pangong areas, but they didn't follow the same rule in some other disputed areas, in some other conflicted areas like Despang, Demchok, Gogra and Hot Springs. Will the Dushanbe meeting similarly break the impasse? So editorial says that Moscow meeting broke the impasse between China and America. So whether this time can we expect that the Dushanbe meeting similarly will break the impasse? The initial means whatever we have received recently. The initial readouts means the main points of a meeting from both sides do not inspire confidence. If something inspire confidence in you, it means it encourages you, it gives confidence to you. So editorial says that the statements from both sides do not give any type of confidence, or you can say that we cannot assure ourselves with these statements. Mr. Jaishankar said the unresolved situation was, unresolved means that has not been solved, situation was visibly impact means to affect, visibly impacting the relationship in a negative manner. So Mr. Jaishankar said the unresolved situation, the situation between China and India is impacting the relations in a negative manner. And assessing, to assess means to judge something, to evaluate something, the overall, and assessing the overall relationship. It was peace on the border that provided the foundation for the development of ties means relations since 1988. Editorial says that it was peace, and peace was the, you can say that, the foundation. Foundation means something on which something is built. So it was the peace between India and China on the border, so that both countries developed their relations since 1988. When the post means after 1962 freeze ended. So here editorial says after the war of 1962, you can say that it was a deadlock situation between India and China, and that deadlock ended during 1988, and after 1988, when peace established between India and China, and it was the foundation for the development of their relations. Mr. Wang did not appear to view the boundary dispute. Dispute means you can say that you do not have same opinion about any issue. So dispute with the same seriousness. So editorial says that Mr. Jaishankar took this issue very seriously, but it seems that Mr. Wang has not taken this issue as seriously as Mr. Jaishankar Prasad have taken. instead calling for it to be kept in an appropriate place while expanding the positive momentum of bilateral cooperation. Expand means when you increase something, when you increase something, when you spread something. The instead calling for it to be kept in an appropriate place while expanding the positive momentum of bilateral cooperation. So it should have happened that to increase the bilateral cooperation. Bilateral means between two countries. Positive momentum means here is speed. So editorial says that to make or to grow the relations between these two countries, it is needed that we should take this issue seriously. Where both sides did agree is, so editorial says that, so what was the point where both countries were agree, and that was the point in their assessment, both countries were agree at the point as Mr. Jaishankar puts it that a if you prolong something, it means you make it longer. Prolongation of the existing situation was not in the interest of either side. So Mr. Jaishankar said in plain words that it will affect both countries if they do not solve the issue. It will not be beneficial for any of the country if we do not solve this issue. The difference from Moscow to Dushanbe is that China. So there has happened two meetings, Moscow meeting and Dushanbe meeting. And what is the difference between these two meetings? China, which last year was equally concerned. Concerned means worried after India's counter deployment. So I already told you, deploy means to make the use of someone or something. Here deployment means when you place your army at border. Counter deployment to take the heights of the Kailash range, where even shots were fired in warning. So after Galwan Valley clash, India also deployed its army at Kailash range, and India also fired some shots in warning. The first firing since 1975, and it was the first firing at Kailash range after 1975. Now appears to be in no hurry. Editorial says that China now appears to be in no hurry to restore. Restore means to bring something back to the normal stage. The status quo. Status quo means current situation. To restore the current situation, to restore the current status quo elsewhere. So editorial says that the China doesn't want to restore the status quo elsewhere. Status quo means current situation. So the current situation which has been being maintained at Kailash range, China doesn't want the same status quo to be maintained elsewhere. India, having declared, when you use V3, having plus V3, it means after that, having declared that normalcy cannot be possible without disengagement. Disengagement means to take your army back, and de-escalation means you have escalated. Escalate means to make something tense, to make something more tense, and de-escalation and signal. So India had said that we cannot expect a normal situation unless we disengage our army, we disengage or we de-escalate the tensions, and signal. And India has signaled its intent. Intent means intention, aim, with measures means steps, including scrutiny means observation on Chinese investments. Bilateral trade, however, is still booming beyond. So editorial says that India has signaled that its intent with measures, including scrutiny on Chinese investment, that in future India may closely observe Chinese investments. For example, if we talk about bilateral trade, means the trade between two countries, however, it is still booming. Booming means growing beyond pre-pandemic level thanks to means because of Huge means vast. Import of medical supplies है ना. So if we talk about the trade between India and China, so India is importing a lot of medical supplies from China. So the China's trade is growing beyond pre-pandemic level. Will now have to stay the course. If you stay the course means to do something until something ends. Stay the course means to do something, to continue doing something until something ends. Will now have to stay the course to underline its resolve on restoring the status quo. So editorial says that India will now have to stay the course to underline its resolve on restoring the status quo. So India will have to maintain, underline means to highlight, its resolve means if India wants to show that it is very dedicated and it wants to restore the status quo, then it will have to do something. Mr. Wang also said that Beijing's strategic judgment on China-India relations remain unchanged. So during this meeting, Mr. Wang said that the planning of, or you can say that the judgments of Beijing regarding China and India relations have not changed. Whether China's PLA, here China's PLA means China's army, which has been dragging its feet. When you drag your feet, it means you make delay in something, you delay something. On negotiation, negotiation means to discuss something, to reach a solution, to restore, to bring something back to normal situation. The LSE status quo since February shares that judgment remains to be seen. So editorial said that okay, Mr. Wang had said that the decisions that have been taken by the China will remain unchanged regarding India and China, and whether this statement is followed by the China's PLA, it remains to be seen, because we see the China's PLA is intentionally delaying, that China's PLA, China's army didn't want to restore the status quo. Status quo means the current situation, है ना. So what was the situation? What was the situation before February, है ना. So whether the China's army also want to, you can say that, to apply the same judgment which Mr. Wang say. So it remains to be seen, है ना. We will see in near future. The only way for Beijing to demonstrate that it is indeed the case will be to resume negotiations on the LSE. Editorial says, if China is really serious, so China can show its seriousness. Demonstrate means to show. If China resume means to start again negotiations on the LSE at the earliest means as soon as possible. So if China's army or China starts negotiations regarding LSE, it will reflect that yes, China is serious regarding the relations of these two countries. Unless a full restoration means, I already told you, restore means to bring something back to the normal stage of peace, and a de-escalation. De-escalation means to take your army back from the border. On the borders happens. So editorial says that unless both countries do not stabilize their relations, unless both countries do not restore peace and follow de-escalation, the relations in all other spheres, means in all other areas will remain cloak. Cloak means to hide something. In distrust. So there will be a distrust. So the relations, if they do not do anything, if both countries do not do anything to maintain peace, to maintain de-escalation, then the relations of these countries in all areas will remain hidden under distrust.